I don't know if the delegates can discover who the guest is, but is a guest that is the president of Ubuntu Global Network. He is here with us in the seminar, from the Seminar Zero, Seminar One, speaking about Mandela's leadership. And he is here today again to inspire ourselves with his wisdom, as Moses said, and his kind words, and his words about building bridges, about Ubuntu philosophy as a way of build bridges. So, without further presentations, I introduce Professor John Volmink, also co-chair of Ubuntu United Nations second edition. So, Professor, welcome to the stage. It is an honor to be in your presence again and to listen to you.
Thank you so much, Maria. And I'm happy to see that your challenges that you had is now gone. You speak normally, no pain. I must also thank all the wonderful speakers. This was a very inspiring session today. I want to say thank you to Maria, you and to Moses for leading us with such conviction. And it gives a real sense of authenticity to what you say. We're not playing with words. You really mean what you say. But also it's true for these speakers. And what a wonderful array of speakers. And I want to congratulate you for having such a wonderful array of speakers. We have Mama Shamsa, who actually lives out the spirit of Ubuntu. And I was really encouraged by her genuine desire to make a difference. And I'm sure the impact of what she's doing will be felt across the world. And same with Daniel Hobst from AFS, who says we all have the opportunity to make a difference. And Professor David Livingstone Smith was very interesting. I'm sure you all agree. And I need to think about what he'd said more and before I comment on that. But I appreciate it and value that because it's always a learning opportunity. And then the wonderful young people who from Yaya and Hanan from Syria and Katrina Khan Roberts from Trinidad and Tobago, you inspire me. You really do inspire me. So I'm going to say a few things, and then I'm going to leave you with a few reflective questions. The focus of this seminar was on the skills and challenges inherent in building bridges. And I'm sure you will agree with me that in everyday life, bridges that we see, myriads of them, they all are meant to span a gap, as Professor David Livingstone said. A gap between two physical spaces or realities. And a bridge is a recognition, though, of the importance, not of the gap, but of both sides. That both sides are important. Each side has a reason and a right to exist. And from the Ubuntu perspective, the creation of a bridge is acknowledging that each side plays a role and brings value. Yet, without the bridge, the two spaces, physical spaces, will remain disconnected. So why do we need a bridge in social systems? And that is where Professor David Livingstone challenged us. I would say because we are often fragmented and separated, and we find ourselves either on one side or the other, with respect to ideology, culture, religion, gender, race, and class, etc., etc. And these things are used against us to divide us further, a thing that Ubuntu leaders will never do. Good leaders never divide people. So in social systems, bridge builders are people who create relationships. And so that is really where I would like us to focus. I don't want to get into the debate whether the gap is real or not. But what is real is a need to create community as a fundamentally Ubuntu activity. And precisely because of that, bridge building is an Ubuntu activity. I just want to say three things about bridge building. One is, it is highly dependent on leadership, but not any kind of leadership. The leadership required for the 21st century and for bridge building, in particular, is servant leadership. And this kind of leadership requires different sets, different skills and values than a traditional leadership of domination. In order to be a servant leader, it will require personal change. It may require unlearning certain ways of leading and to relearn new ways of being and leading in the world. But you cannot influence others unless you have changed yourself. So to be a bridge builder, you have to be a servant leader. That's the one thing. I also would like to point out that the servant leaders, bridge builders, build trust. So that's another skill. You must be able to build trust through improved communication between conflicting people and groups. And I would put it differently. They promote a culture of dialogue. Now, whether you focus on race or not, a culture of dialogue and peace is not there in the world. And bridge builders are skilled in dealing with the dynamics of interpersonal relationships. So the goal of dialogue, just for a minute, is not to resolve disputes. We don't have dialogue in order to resolve disputes between whatever, but rather to improve the way in which people with significant differences based on whatever, on voice, on resources, on land or religion, how they relate to each other. And this may mean that the one side now better understands the logic of the narrative of the other. You know, I've been in discussions where the one group thought the other group was completely crazy. And I said, wait. And I am involved in peace building right now in South Africa because we have an election next week. So I said, no, just you will get your turn, you speak. And at the end, I hope that you'll see that these people are not crazy, that there's a narrative and there's a logic in that narrative if you listen carefully. So the achievement of shared understanding does not mean that we have no differences, but rather that we have better insight of the other. So a lot has been said about dialogue, and I know that you understand that dialogue involves strategies for fostering empathy and encouraging parties to put themselves in the shoes of the other and imagine how their opponents must feel, and to know the enemy, as Mandela has said. So shared meaning is what we hope we'll arrive at. It's not achieved by force or by violence or by coercion, but by empathy and listening, the kind of listening that leads to better understanding of each other. So each side must be given the opportunity and space to grasp the meaning of the other, and no side should be forced to reorganize their existing pattern of meaning. Now, I want to close with a few questions. And I use these are not profound questions, they're not philosophical questions. They really got to do with how I live my life on a day-by-day basis, within the context in which I live, and I hope you live. So these are some questions for reflection. As an aspiring Ubuntu leader, how do you deal with otherness? Otherness. How do you deal, in other words, with diversity? Do you see diversity as a threat that needs to be tightly managed, or a resource for learning? Is diversity a resource for learning? Diversity does not only apply to culture and race or religion, but also includes epistemological diversity. Epistemological diversity meaning ways of coming to know. We have different ways of coming to know and to create meaning. So that's my first question. Second question, when last have you engaged closely with a person who looks different to you, who dresses different to you, who greets differently, who speaks differently, who believes differently than you? How does it make you feel when you're with such a person or with a group? Have you ever attended a funeral or a wedding in a place of worship other than your own, one that you're used to? And how does that make you feel? If you are at a social gathering, I want you to be honest to yourself. Do you look to interact with a variety of people? Or are you more comfortable with seeking out your own, people that look like you, talk like you, walk like you? And lastly, as an Ubuntu leader, how conscious are you of the common humanity you share with others in your daily interactions? Is that uppermost in your mind? Or is it something that you have to remind yourself? Our common humanity. Are you really convinced that human relationships, rather than armed responses, have the power to diffuse conflicts and can be effective in peace building and reconciliation, and is essential for building trust? Then finally, are you involved in any collaborative projects? We've heard some of these beautiful projects, and in 2021, I first heard of this project in India-Pakistan project, and it really touched me and inspired me. And are you involved in any collaborative project, possibly with members of different groups or even different nationalities, as we've heard now, and that encourages people to imagine a common peaceful future together? Yeah, you can't imagine a peaceful future if you don't work together and struggle for the same things. So, good people, bridge building can be personally very demanding on the leader, and often comes at a personal cost. I can give you a lot of examples, and Louis Marx recognized that, and he supported me and he helped me to overcome having to absorb all that negativity in the leadership that I was playing. But just as in the case of physical bridge structures, leaders can experience stress and other forces leading to a buckling. You know, a bridge can buckle and a bridge can snap. So be prepared and take care of yourself. because self-care is as important as care for others. Thank you. All the best.